Hello, Ted Bradshaw. This video today is about what to expect from a course of therapy. Where do you start and what's it going to be like? That's the idea. Particularly I'm talking about CBT, Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, which is what I do. CBT is quite an active therapy. And what I mean by that is it's not based just on the idea that talking in itself is really helpful, which it is. But actually CBT takes it a bit step further and says it'd be really helpful if both of us can really understand the problem. So it assumes that if we look at it and we break it down, we'll be able to understand how it works and to do some things that actually change it. And that hopefully by the time that we finish working together, you will know those things and you'll be able to take those things forward with you. That's the idea. Just to break it down a little bit into some sections, because that's how my head works, I've got sort of 3 questions that we're tending to want to answer over the course of therapy. If we get a good answer to each of them, we got a good chance of getting somewhere. Those 3 questions are, they're quite simple. What's going on? What's caused it? And what can I do about it? Those are the 3. What's going on isn't as simple as it sounds. So sometimes it's really obvious to you what's going on. So you might have had this problem before, or it might be that you've started feeling this way and you've done a bit of reading or you've done a bit of Googling or whatever it might be, and you've identified some things that you think, yeah, that sounds like me. I think this is depression or I think this is OCD. Great, that's a really useful starting point. It might be, and it's equally as common, that you've no idea. And you're you know how you feel, or you know that you don't feel right, but you can't put your finger on what you'd call it, or you can't quite decide how to describe it. Or it might be that it's somewhere in between, that you've got some ideas about it, what it might be or what it could be, but you're not totally sure. So that's job number 1, is for us to work together to work out what is this thing. This brings us on to quite a key thing about CBT, which is it's not all about me doing the this is probably what it is, and it's not all about you going, this is probably what it is. It's about us working together. And what I mean by that is, I might know how depression or OCD or generalised anxiety or PTSD, and I might know how they work generally, and I know some really useful things that tend to work for those things. But what I don't know is how it works for you. Everybody experiences these things differently, and actually the most important part is that I can ask you some questions that will help us both understand how it works for you. What that will lead us to is when it comes to deciding what to do about it, they'll be much more tailored and they'll be much clearer about exactly what it is that we need to target or what it is that we need to do differently. If it was as simple as, oh, you've got this problem, here, do this, essentially we'd just be able to give out a leaflet and that would be job done. But it's not always as easy as that. So working together is a really important part. What you might expect, what you might see in the first 2-3 sessions and going on from there is actually your therapist, or if it's me, asking questions of you, asking, okay, so when you did this, what was that like? How did you think about this? And breaking it down. Number 2, what caused it? You don't necessarily need to know what caused the way that you feel. And actually what you might find if you've ever experienced going for some sort of short help is that not a lot of time is spent on where's it come from. It's more about let's understand what's going on and try and change it. However, in my view, understanding what's brought it on can be really helpful for a couple of different reasons. One is when you don't know where it's come from, you can feel like you're being really weird. I don't get why I feel this way. I don't understand. How can this possibly be happening to me? And usually once we break it down, once we look at it through a few different ways, we can find a reason. And hopefully what that makes you do is go, oh, okay, maybe I'm not as weird as I thought. Maybe this is okay. Maybe this is reasonable that I'm feeling this way. And that's really valuable. But the second thing is, I suppose, more practical, which is if you know what caused it, hopefully that gives you a bit more confidence that you'll be able to manage it in the future or maybe avoid it in the future. If I was to use a sort of physical analogy, like if you had a back problem and you went for physio, you don't necessarily need to know what caused it in order to get some useful help about how you can fix it or how you can manage it. But you might feel a lot more confident if you've understood what caused it in the first place, because that might help you either avoid that thing again, or if you can't avoid it, you might be able to anticipate it and understand it and do some things that will help you soften the impact of it, I suppose. Third one, what we're going to do about it. There are loads of different things you can do to help with mental health issues. However, again, different things work more or less effectively for each individual person, but also just for each individual problem. So there are different things you might do, for example, with OCD and generalised anxiety. They're quite similar in lots of different ways, but there are certain things that are different, and those differences are important. So that brings us back to that stage one. If we've understood it well, we'll be able to select the right things that will really help going forward. Working out what the right thing is isn't only about talking about it and about trying some things in the session. It's also about trying things outside the session and maybe giving things a go and saying, okay, right, we've got this idea that this might help. Now I'm going to have to give this a crack. And it might be that you give it a go, you try it out, you come back and we discuss how that's gone, work out together what worked well there, what didn't work well, and we try something else as well. Or it might be that we pinpoint the exact right thing straight away and we can bash that out straight away. It depends. But either way, what we're certainly looking for is if we invest the time in the first 2 or 3 sessions on really understanding how this goes and how this works, the rest of the time, those bits and pieces that we're doing to get you to try something new will be more effective. That's a long-winded way of me saying don't be surprised if actually the first few sessions are more about understanding and making sure we're on the right page here before we sort of take a leap and go and do something about it. It will be time well invested. I hope that's useful and that you've got some ideas there about how it might go.